Independence Avenue speaks loudly at noon. The opinions of the nation can be heard walking here. One of the most vibrant arteries of the country is like a litmus test. How do Belarusians feel about language today? Our language is very beautiful, it sounds melodic. Do you listen to it often? I listen to it with great pleasure. The Belarusian language is actually very well thought out. There are Belarusian language schools, all sciences are taught in Belarusian, everything is translated into Belarusian. Is that good that we have bilingualism? That's good, we have both Russian and Belarusian, almost in the same proportion. I have a very good attitude towards the language. It is a very beautiful language. It is always pleasant to hear the literate speech of Belarusian people. Belarusians respect their language. What do you think about it? I think it is very important to preserve it. In the modern world, children are forgetting the language a little because they use it less often. But I think that the Belarusian language should be implemented everywhere and preserved as much as possible. Belarusian language schools help this a lot. While we are going to the nearest one, even the poets, scholars and Mulavin may be surprised. Why does such a question arise in the country at all? Here both our native languages, Russian and Belarusian, flourished peacefully in their time. If everything is clear to a true Belarusian, including after the famous referendum of 1995, then those who abandoned their homeland seem to have quickly erased from their memory both the announcements of their local bus stops and the names of the quietest streets in the world. For the current authorities, the Belarusian language is something terrible, something that should not exist. In practice, everything was done to ensure that the Belarusian language was excluded from the system of public life and government. It was impossible to speak Belarusian. There was such a policy to do everything to ensure Russification, so that people would abandon their language and literature. People who speak Belarusian are considered opponents of the regime and are subject to arrests, fines, and imprisonment on politically motivated charges. In the next few minutes, we'll see what we're really doing with our heritage today, bypassing the treacherous rents from over the border, which should once again upset European officials. They speculate extremely hard on this topic. If someone there talks about some kind of neglect, destruction of the historical and cultural heritage of Belarus, I recommend reading Directive No. 12. There was a distinctive Belarusian ethnos, which became a distinctive Belarusian nation. This nation has its own historical heritage. It has its own historical statehood. The Belarusian language is developing and will continue to live. Contrary to all those who lament its death, the gentlemen lament prematurely. First, let's talk about education in the mother tongue. Here's an example, Gymnasium No. 23, which is in the center of Minsk. For more than 20 years, pedagogues here have been teaching even physics and mathematics exclusively in Belarusian terms.
Так, що вибираєш? Біт, став, кропочку натискай. Наступне питання, сідай наступне.
7 – гэта не значэнне аргумента, а значэнне функцыі. Функцыя ў нас – гэта модуль x. Значыць, модуль ліку x. Піши.
The Belarusian language is heard in every lesson and in all subjects. Today, in a small building that opened its doors in 1936, there are 460 students. The results of daily practice, just listen to how the mother tongue flows. It's easy enough, because if you speak Belarusian already in first grade and your family always speaks Belarusian too, then you don't even notice it. You have no questions. Somewhere outside of school, it can be hard to remember a Russian word. All my friends know Belarusian, and if I start speaking Belarusian to them, they will start speaking Belarusian to me too. This, I think, is our first language, because we are Belarusians, and so that they can pass it on from generation to generation, as we will do now. The number of teachers is also increasing. They even come here from Russian-speaking institutions. Specialists are trying to independently broaden their horizons and increase their vocabulary. I maintain relations with colleagues from Belarusian-speaking institutions, and each institution has its own development path and has its own students. We have already held meetings for parents of our future first graders. There is our neighborhood, children who are attached to our institution. There is interest in the institution among them. We are ready to enroll 2 full classes now. There exists a chance to study in Belarusian too. Nobody forbids the Belarusian language. About 42% of secondary education institutions, schools, gymnasiums, lyceums provide education in the Belarusian language, compulsory education in 2 state languages in the regulations of the Education Code of Belarus. More often, it is not parents who apply to the relevant ministry, but so-called anonymous pseudo-actors, not knowing that each school can select and engage in one of the 30 developed electives, let us emphasize, in the Belarusian language. Not only are we not talking about some kind of reduction policy today, all students must, as I said, study the Belarusian language and the Russian language for the same number of hours in educational institutions. After 9th grade, they take a mandatory exam where they take the Belarusian and Russian language tests, and after the 11th grade, they have the right to choose the centralized examination in Russian or Belarusian. Every 5th student chooses to take the centralized exam in the Belarusian language. Anyone who wants will always find the opportunity and circumstances to study the language. Postgraduate student of the Faculty of Journalism Hitoshi Tanaka from Japan did it easily.
Мы розумні, дуйна слушіх яднає, спознання душою, спокваля, коренительная, сильнительная, лесная.
The melodious mother tongue should also reflect the development of the state, a living language with respect for history, but not without evolution. In 2008, Belarus took an unprecedented step. The law on the rules of Belarusian orthography and punctuation was adopted. It gave the literary language a specific standard. This seemed to console all layers of society, because, to be honest, we created a lot of new rules for the law. There are less and classes and assimilation softness. The language can just go back 100 years. It is a phenomenon of the Polish language, and we all know perfectly well that up to 1939, look at Slutsk, we were under Poland. It is clear that there was influence in spelling, and they didn't have a natural step into the Belarusian language, but an artificial, forced one. The legal sphere quickly absorbed the formulated norms. The Belarusian language legal framework has been created. The decision was up to the parliament to adopt an appropriate mechanism for considering documents in both languages. Meanwhile, complex work is underway at the Institute of Linguistics at the Academy of Sciences. One of the projects being implemented on behalf of the president is the translation of legal codes into Belarusian. The work is not easy because legal terminology is very specific. Each code has its own characteristics, and sometimes we also have to work on the selection of equivalents for Russian terms. We introduce some new terms when translating the codes, in particular sujency, as in the meaning of spouses. There was no other way out. We revived the ancient Belarusian word testament in the meaning of will. This word was used in the 14th, 18th centuries during the Great Duchy of Lithuania. It seems that now the so-called fighters for justice abroad are making up the testament to the mother tongue. The Belarusian language is losing its communicative function in society. Belarus is at the bottom of the list in terms of the use of the national language in the media and everyday life. And these lies are being spread while Minsk News is being broadcast on First Informational Channel.
У прямому ефірі на Першому інформаційному і на телеканалі Беларусь-24 новини столиці Мінської області. У студії Євген Калечець. Вітаю коротко про основні події.
They also talk about the weather on Belarus 1.
Вітаю вас, шановні телеглядачі. Надвор'я не перестає нас здивляти.
From dusk till dawn, the Belarus 3 TV channel broadcasts true values.
А у мене тримається одному колиханку вести. Я ж ще маленький.
The treasury of Belarusian identity, which is so carefully protected by Belty Radio Company, while in 2020 some one-day stars dreamed of robbing everyone of the state treasure, selfless specialists remained with the good and eternal. Behind every TV presenter who worked on the Belarus 3 TV channel was a professional, an editor who spoke Belarusian at a perfect level. They wrote texts for those who do not work on our TV channel now. To say that after 2020 we now have less Belarusian on TV would be a lie. Belarusian speech flows around the clock through the waves of Belarusian radio, no matter how you surf, from the rockin' Stolitsa to the highbrow Kultura. The first national channel talks to its audience for 18 hours straight. Radio Fact alone has been on the air for more than 30 years. I have a strong negative attitude towards those attempts to privatize our Belarusianness, our national identity, and to speculate on these, things that are unforgivable. If you strive to preserve your national identity, and in the globalized world this is very important, Borders are now erased very easily, all thanks to this globalism, information technologies, and unification. But what we create is our own, Belarusian. It is created on our native land by those people who live here. These are also our writers and poets. Everything is written not to be forgotten. Every visitor to the International Book Fair and the Day of Belarusian Writing is convinced every year. At the same time, a national bookshelf and an open microphone. Last year, the presentation took place in Ivacevichi. More than 150 masters of the word voiced their thoughts. There is also a fresh figure on publications, more than 9,000 in 2023 alone. A total of 468 business entities in the State Register of Publishers. Is there any reason to worry about those whose business did not work out? Listen, it didn't really close, and secondly, against the background of the gains, it's not even noticeable. Statistics are on the side of those who work in our country, for our country, who is concerned about the sovereignty, statehood of the Republic of Belarus. By the way, I was working on a collection of short stories by young writers, and there are authors from 17 to 35 years old, quite interesting authors, and some of them work at the level of Deputy Dean of Faculty at a Polytechnic University, for example. The topic of the succession of generations, family traditions in general that are connected with the life of ancestors, with the trials that they had to face. These themes are also on the stage of the Republican Theatre of Belarusian Drama, a scene that, in parallel with Kupala, helps to see and feel the Belarusian soil. On the 80th anniversary of the Great Victory, the bestseller Alpine Ballet by Bykov.
Надії вижить у лагері смерті не було ніякої. Сьогодні зранку їх турбувало тільки одно – у опошній раз ризикнуть вирватися на волю.
Today, it's hard to get a ticket to the theater because they stage the most popular episodes of our lives. The theater preserves the memory code through new scenarios as well. We have drama laboratories at the Center for Belarusian Drama, and for the third year in a row, I see that there are 5 participants. And now we are waiting for one Belarusian-language text from the latest laboratory about cultural traditions, about the village, about how a modern Belarusian lives in a metropolis but preserves that love for roots, for family history. It is the modern trend that young Belarusian playwrights choose the Belarusian language more often than it was, for example, 5 years ago. During this time, Krevo Castle has also changed, the first stone castle in the country. In 2017, the ruins began to be revived. The citadel, where Poland and the Grand Duchy of Lithuania signed the union, thanked. It revealed its hidden third tower to descendants. And now a history that is more than 6 centuries old is emerging from the ground. Without state support, it would be impossible. You see, the southwestern wall was completed, put into operation, and today work is underway on the southeastern wall. You can see it. And today the funds have been spent in full for the entire volume of construction. This is 1,840,000 rubles. State funds is the main means of carrying out restoration, repair and conservation work on historical and cultural heritage sites. The government approved the concept for the development of the national cultural space. This is one of the main documents, which is the quintessence of state cultural policy for the current perspective. When we talk about historical memory, we also mean the castle era. What the Nazis destroyed is now a national value. The foundations did not remain overgrown with grass, neither in Halshani, nor in Grodno, nor in Kosovo. Mir and NEWS.BY were also not the face of our country in the 90s. Support for cultural art clusters continues today. Restoration work was underway and exhibits were purchased so that we could fill our collections, our funds. The state spent more than $70 million in total. This is an example so that no one would say that little attention is paid to culture in Belarus. Every year we try to buy what appears at auctions, what collectors offer us. Somewhere in Europe today, our Slutsk belts are also spread out, 48 valuables, and this is only the known ones. The treasure was lost in the first 3 months of the Great Patriotic War, when the director of the Dresden Gallery and the Himmler's authorized person for the inventory of valuables were busy in our Belarusian Art Museum. So those who are worried about the state of Belarusian culture have something to do. While tongues are itching there, the state continues to weave this national symbol in Slutsk. Thanks to the president, thanks to his persistence, the attitude, what will you scientists succeed in, a state program took place, and it, in my opinion, was successful. Now we have copies of Slutsk belts as elements of a man's suit, which are not worn, but what we call a thorough weighty memory. And it is precisely for this, for the future, for the education of our youth in these best traditions, that the state program has appeared. A whole pathetic diary of memory was written at the Bolshoi Theater. The creators blew the dust of the old scores of Tsykotsky, Bogotyrev and Wagner. This is also our biography. The epilogue of the large-scale project, which was implemented thanks to the presidential grant, was the oath in the words of Korotkevich, to the land that we will never leave. They were heard in the Brest Fortress, St. Petersburg and Moscow. Projects like Pathetic Diary of Memory are becoming more than just musical events today. They are becoming real cultural presentations of the era. Through them, the theater seeks to preserve the memory. An important factor is the support from the audience, who are interested in Belarusian culture on the stage of the National Theater. The audience shows a keen interest in the Belarusian repertoire. They ask questions about future productions by Belarusian authors and actively attend performances. The lack of cultural development within the country, the shortage of ideas and motivations, the inability to remain with Belarusianness and, nationality is extremism. Such a note comes from refugees to Belarusian culture today. For confirmation, we visited the Belarusian Union of Artists and the exhibition Art Minsk. Art Minsk is being held for the 8th year in a row, and as far as I know, more than 1,000 applications. We can say that there are artists. There are young artists who are interested in it, who need to express themselves. Yes, definitely. You know, in recent years there has been a certain boom around Art Minsk. There are many applications, and not only from members of the Belarusian Union of Artists. There is a great sense in these huge events. It is an opportunity to declare oneself. This is the first and most important thing. There are patrons here, members of the union, serious critics and magazines. There are people who buy works, because for us it is a kind of art market. The works contain grandmothers' conversations, philosophical reflections and mythology. Where did real Belarusians come from? No matter what the work is, it is our cultural code, its retelling. In general, everyone who works on this land understands how important it is not to give up on your ideals, to preserve your sense of self-esteem, while the refugees come up with fairy tales of the fictional destruction in order to fill their wallets again. We stop there too, on independence from other people's opinions, which have no respect, not a drop, for our real achievements. Belarusians will continue to create. They will speak their native language and develop their national culture, no matter what.